Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about security. Security is very important in SnappyForge. We don't want anybody accessing your applications, forms, or even data without your explicit permission. So by default, everything is automatically locked down as you create things. So far we've created 2 forms, customers and purchases, and 1 application menu, and they're all locked down. There's only one account that can access them, and that's the account that I used to create them. So, there are going to be times, most times, when you're going to want to share portions of your application with the outside world, be it the general public or just a small subset of people, perhaps some coworkers or a small group of people in your office. We can do this using roles. So if we click the Manage Roles button, we can see there are 2 roles right off the bat: Open Access and Registered Users. Open Access is the internet as a whole. Anybody with a web browser and an internet connection can access your application. Registered Users is only for SnappyForge users, so if you wanted to keep things just to people who are using SnappyForge, you can do that as well. However, there's going to be many times when you're going to want to create a even smaller, more personal subset of people, and you do this by adding your own role. So we're going to create a role right now, and we're going to call it Purchase Admins. And we're going to create another role called Purchase Users. Now, we can always edit the names of these, and we can add users to them as well. So I'm going to click Add Users, and we're going to see here, role name is Purchase Admins. And then here in this section, Forms, Controls, Apps, App Tabs, and Automation Workflows, where this role is used. Now, we just created it. It's not used anywhere yet, but later we'll come back and I'll show you how this gets populated as you start to use the role, so you can kind of get an understanding of how it's being used in your application. We can also add users here, so we're going to click Add User. I know the email of the person I'd like to invite. That's me. And I'm already an account user, so I've just been added. If I wasn't, I would get an invitation link, and then when I join SnappyForge, I would automatically have access to this role. Going back to the dashboard now. So we've just created 2 roles, but they still don't have access to anything. We give access to both the application and the forms separately. So we'll start with the application because it's pretty simple. So we click Edit, Edit Permissions and Settings, and we get this Allow Roles section here. And here's the 2 open access and registered users that we had from before, and our 2 that we just created, Purchase Admins and Purchase Users. So if I give the menu as a whole open access, anybody on the internet will have access to the menu. But that does not give them access to each individual tab. Each individual tab also has these specific roles. So, generally speaking, if someone were to come to your application and they're not logged in yet, you'd want to still give the login button open access. And if you wanted to have a sign out button, you can give Purchase Admins and Purchase Users access as well to the login button. Now, Purchase Admins and Purchase Users are going to have access to the Purchase Orders section, and they're also going to be able to add new purchases to the application. I don't really want anybody to have access to the sales reports, but I do want the Purchase Admins to be able to add new customers, but not the Purchase Users. Now if we save permissions and settings and save the menu, they will now have access. If, by some reason, someone were to come into your application right now, all they would see is the login button. So, let me show you what this looks like. I'm going to take this link here. I'm going to open a new window. And you can see they don't have access to the form and a login button. Even if they were to log in right now, they still don't have access to the forms. What I mean by that is someone who logs in would see the menu, but they would not see the form yet. The form has separate authentication, really. So we set the security on the form like so. So right now we're on the purchase orders form. We're going to hover over this form, and we're going to go over to security. From security, we're going to click Add New. Now, everything is controlled by mode and role. Forms, as you remember, have modes. When they're created, there's always a list, an add, and an edit mode. There's also a delete mode, but it's just a little button that lets you delete things. And then there's two buttons for Excel, Export, and Create Report. All of the permissions are handled separately for each of these things. So, I don't really need anybody to have Excel Export or Create Report access, but I do want to give these two new roles access to the list. I want to let them add, and I want to let them edit. And that's it. That's all I want them to do. I don't want anybody to be able to delete a purchase, and I don't want them to see the Export to Excel button or the Create Report button. Similarly, we're going to have to do the same thing on our other form, customers. So, same thing, we're going to come in for security. And if you recall from before, when we set security, we only gave it to purchase admins. So I'm only going to give access to purchase admins. And even them, I'm not going to let them delete. I'm just going to let them list, add, and edit. So they can view the list, they can add new, and they can edit customers. But they cannot delete, they cannot export the customer list to Excel, and they cannot create a report on it. One thing I'd like to show everybody real quick before we end is now our roles under Manage Roles has been populated, so we can see where this particular role is being used throughout our applications and forms. This is very useful, and it'll come in handy later on. The other thing I'd like to point out is this Get Share link. Get Share link allows us to take a link and pass it out to anybody we like. Keep in mind though, whoever you give this link to will have access to everything that this role has access to, so you should probably be very careful who you share this link with. But it is a very quick way for you to share your application with the outside world. And let me show you what that looks like. So similarly, that link that I just copied brings me here. This particular link that you can give out and send to anybody you want has all the rights that the purchase admin role has. So you have to be very careful who you give these out to, but it works just the same. See, we're not logged in, but this link has all the same access that our purchase admin would have. So you can see how easy that is to share and give things out to people as you need them. Just keep that in mind. And in the next video, we'll talk about opening up your application to the public.